I've been using headphones for audio with my desktop computer exclusively for over a year now, mainly because I don't want to bother anyone when I'm playing Battlefield at all hours of the night, but also because it makes my desk setup a little more minimal and frees up some desk space as well. Although I love the Vanitus I was previously using as my computer speakers, I've been currently putting those to work playing music in the basement. In any event, I thought it was finally time to upgrade my PC headphones and switch to something wireless, and because I'm a huge gamer, I needed something with a mic on it as well. So I started looking at all the different wireless gaming options that were available out there. Now, to me, the three most important factors I would consider in a pair of wireless gaming headphones would be first, and most importantly of all, the headphones have to be comfortable for long periods of use. And two, they have to be convenient to use. So in other words, the operation has to be as seamless as possible in regards to its sleep and wake function, the battery life, and the headphone controls. And third and last is the sound quality, which some people might think should go first. But well, to me, if you don't have number one, you'll hate wearing them. And if you don't have number two, they'll be such a pain in the ass to use that it will outweigh any amazing audio quality you might otherwise be getting. Now, quick note if you're wondering about going with Bluetooth headphones as an option. To me, they don't really do surround sound, and the bandwidth is pretty low on Bluetooth, meaning you're going to end up with a pretty compressed sound overall. And I don't believe that most Bluetooth connections will typically persist after you walk away from your computer and come back into range. But I do know that with the dedicated 2.4 gigahertz style connections, I can walk away from my computer, and then as soon as I come back into range, it will automatically reconnect and the audio will just start working without me having to mess with anything. And I found that to be a really convenient feature. So the first set of headphones I ended up buying to test out were these ones from Logitech. The model number is G533. They're like Logitech's budget or entry-level wireless headphones. They go for about $80 online. Now I thought they were really pretty cool looking headphones. They're nice and simple. All black. They do have some shiny plastic on them, which I'm not a huge fan of, but not too much. Overall, they're still pretty cool looking. Now, the comfort level on these weren't the greatest, unfortunately. The clamping force was okay, but to me, the main issue with them was that the cushions on them were really, really stiff, and then the fabric that covers the cushion is unbelievably scratchy. I have no idea why they would have selected that. It's like nobody even tried them on to check them out, but they're a little scratchy. You can probably hear that there. So not really great in the comfort level. The good thing is you can get these like replacement leather, well, fake leather pads on Amazon for about $7 or $8. And that does make a huge difference. Still overall though, even with those, they weren't like extremely comfortable, unfortunately. So that was one major drawback. Now, the controls on these were actually really good. That's one thing I liked about them a lot. So you can see the controls here on the side. There's the charging port on the bottom. And then there's a volume dial, which is nice because when you change the volume on here by rolling it, it does give you the windows. You can see here a little bit. It does give you the visual feedback there to let you know what your volume level is set at. And I find that to be pretty useful. The other thing, there is a G button on here on the back. And you can assign this button through the Logitech gaming software to really do anything you want. You can assign it a keystroke on your keyboard. You can have it mute your audio or mute your mic. You can have it mute or unmute. It can also toggle your surround sound off or on because this does 7.1 surround sounds. DTS X headphone is the spec on there. Now, one cool thing you can do with all the different software that comes with all these wireless headphones is you are able to set per profile settings. So in other words, if you want a per profile equalizer, depending on what game you're playing, or if you're launching, let's say, a Spotify application, you can have those settings toggle on without having to mess with anything. You can also have the surround sound toggle off and on. So when you're just using your regular system, you don't want to really enable surround sound unless you're watching a movie because YouTube and other audio sounds weird. Music, you want stereo. But you know, as soon as you launch any of these other games or whatever application you have running, you can have it go ahead and enable surround sound automatically. So that's pretty cool feature there. And then the last thing here is you can see this has a nice, simple on-off switch here. And the reason why that's important is I found in using these wireless headphones is a lot of times I would go to use them and they wouldn't have went to sleep. So when I pick them up, the battery was completely dead on them, which I found to be pretty annoying. Now, I don't know why they don't use an accelerometer to where every time you pick them up, they would turn on, and when you put them down, they would turn off. But they're supposed to go to sleep on their own, and you can set the time it takes for them to go to sleep in the software. But I found that it didn't always turn itself off, and I don't know if that was a system issue of mine, but I know they would die on battery even when I didn't have any audio playing, so I couldn't really figure that out. The good thing is there is this switch, so I got at least into the habit of turning it off every time I wouldn't use it. I obviously would rather not have to do that, but once I did that, the switch is really easy to just flip off and on every time you use them. And so that kind of fixed the problem there. So that is, you know, as far as the controls, it was really nice. Obviously, with these being gaming headphones, this has a microphone as well. And you can see, you know,
this just pops down really easy, so it's you know, you don't have to like be messing with it. You want a game, just pull this down, and then the mic's ready to be used. And that, you know, by pulling it down, it automatically turns it off and on. The other thing is this does extend out a little bit, you can see. So this gives you a little bit extra flexibility there. And so one other thing I did want to mention too is the battery life on this. When they're fully charged is about 16 hours. So that's pretty solid if you ask me. So yeah, overall these were pretty nice headphones. The sound quality on them was awesome. No complaints there at all. Rich bass on them. The music sounded great. And then with gaming, with surround sound turned off, especially in Battlefield 1, there's Logitech Pro G driver setting in the audio settings. And when you enable that, man, Battlefield really comes alive. It's definitely sounded good. Huge explosions, you know, gunfire everywhere. There's a lot of dynamic range in the headphones, you can tell. And the Pro audio drivers, I think, makes a difference over just the regular other audio settings you can select within Battlefield. So definitely happy with these overall. Like I said, the drawback was that the comfort really wasn't awesome for long-term use. And, you know, they did feel a little bit cheap overall. You can hear them maybe a little bit, they creak and crack a little bit, but that's not a huge, that's not a deal breaker for me. But, you know, I tried these out for a while and I was like, they were good, but then I definitely thought we could do a little bit better. All right, so I tried out the G533s. I wasn't completely happy with them, so I thought to myself, well, let's move up the Logitech line. So the next set of headphones I got was the G933s. This is Logitech's top of the line wireless headphones, and they go for about 140 bucks, I believe, online, 130, 140, so like $50 more than the other set. As far as comfort on these, they were actually, I would say, a slightly notch worse than the G533s, and that is because the clamping force on them was a lot harder. So, and they also use the same stupid stiff, you know, scratchy ear pads here, which I can't believe on their high-end ones they wouldn't use a lot nicer, more plush leather. So the comfort was worse, and I found after using these, even for like 30 or 40 minutes, it was a relief to get them off my head. When you take them off, it was like, it feels so much better. So headphones should never feel like that, and to me, that was just the major deal breaker right off the bat. They use like a nicer plastic overall. They have more programmable function buttons here. They have the G1, 2, and 3. They have a dedicated mute button here, and you can assign these buttons, same thing in the Logitech gaming software, to do anything you want, so that's cool. And the rotary, the volume dial on here is a little bit nicer too. It's got a little more resistance, just a lot better feel, and it's in a little bit slightly better location being lower, so little advantage there. The only other thing too is this also had problems going to sleep on its own. Again, that could be a system issue, but I suspect it's not. So you would have to turn these off and on as well. The problem with that is the off and on button's located here on the top, so a little bit more awkward to reach if you're going to be turning them off and on several times a day. So I don't know, I wasn't excited. I didn't love the controls, and I definitely didn't love the comfort on these. And they do have these magnetic covers here, which is where you put the, this is where it holds the USB, you know, the receiver here. And the one for the G533 is very similar to this one. You just plug it in, and I like that it's not some wired dongle. It's just an actual USB like thumb drive, so it can be in your system without having to add extra wire. Anyways, that goes in there, but on the other side, there is a battery here, which you would think, well, that would be nice if you could just swap the batteries out and you wouldn't have to worry about turning it off and on. But you can see here, this battery has a freaking wire on it, so even if you were to hot swap these out somehow and find a charger for these, you'd have to, like, you know, unplug this and then put that little wire in there instead of just having the connectors built into the side of the headphones, which would really make it a lot more useful. So I actually don't even know why they would make the battery accessible there, because they don't make an accessory charger for it. So that was the 933s. Now I will say that the sound quality on these, when you use the Logitech G driver audio selection and turn the surround sound on, was easily the best Battlefield experience I've ever sound from an audio standpoint, at least for headphones. They were just awesome. Really good spatial feeling, sense of depth and distance where you could hear things exploding. So I really liked the sound quality on them. You know, music sounded really good on them. So it was just, you know, really disappointing that the comfort was so bad on them. The other thing that's cool too is the microphone here is nice. It does have the same kind of extension there. But it's nice because when you pull it down, it turns on, and you can see it just kind of hides out of the way when you put it. So a little bit nicer design than the 533s. But like I say, the deal breaker on these was just way too uncomfortable. The other thing too is if you're into it, these do RGB They have the RGB, functionality. You can pulse lights and change the colors on them to have the, these headphones light up if you're into that. I don't really care about that too much, and it does also drain the battery. Now, a full battery charge on this is about 15 hours. The audio quality sound was awesome. Comfort and controls, not so great. So the last set of headphones I decided to try out were these ones from SteelSeries. These are the SteelSeries Arctic 7, and they are pretty highly rated online across the board. You can see here the best gaming headset rated by PC Gamer. And I will say they were pretty nice. They were a really nice material. They go for about 150 bucks. As far as the comfort on them, they use a unique style adjustment here, which is like the ski goggle style strap, which you adjust the Velcro here to tighten it up if you have a smaller head, and it's on its maximum setting now. But I will say that I found these to be absolutely the most comfortable headphones I've ever used, and that includes any Bluetooth headphones or any regular headphones. I've tried a bunch of different kinds. These were amazingly comfortable. And I don't know if it's like this, just the style of them, but the ear cushions were nice and the fabric was really soft. But I could wear these for a couple hours at a time at least, just wear them for hours all day long and not even feel like I had headphones on, which is an amazing feat, I think. So the comfort on these were easily a 10 out of 10 most comfortable headphones I've ever used, which is awesome. Now, where these headphones I felt really short were in the controls department. So you can see there's a volume control on the left, which is fine, but the volume control isn't integrated with the Windows system. So in other words, adjusting the volume here wouldn't control the volume in Windows. It just kind of controlled the volume on the headphones. So it just felt a little bit disconnected overall. And what you can do is you can obviously set the Windows volume to 100 maximum level and then control the volume here. But not having the visual feedback I found was a little frustrating. You couldn't really know ever really where your volume level was set. Having the visual feedback I think is just way, way better. Now, the other control over here, which is a really cool feature, is it lets you control in-game communications versus just your regular system audio. So if you wanted to turn up people talking on their microphones, you can roll this dial up and it reduces the volume of the game volume, and increases the communication volume, which is a really cool feature if you think about it. But in practice, it doesn't work well because of the location of where this is. So in other words, every time I would go to pick these up, I would find myself hitting either one of these volume rockers accidentally. So I would have to spend a minute or two every time to figure out why I'm not getting any audio out of the headphones, whether or not it was disconnected, or if it was just the fact that it was slid up all the way up to the communications volume to where you wouldn't hear any system volume. And so I would have to spend a minute, or at least half the time every time I pick these up, a minute or two, figuring out why I wasn't getting any volume out of them. And to me, that was a complete deal breaker. The location of this control and the dials were just too easy to hit when I was grabbing it. The other thing is, it has a little recessed mute button, which just works okay, but I found it a little bit harder to hit than compared to the Logitechs. And then the other thing was, when you have this on your head, you can see the microphone. This was just a little bit hard to pull out and grab every time. And when you do, it's just like this stiff wire, and you see how it just pops out, and it's not, you can mend it, but it just is not as, it's just not as cool of a design as just being able to pull down the microphone like on the Logitechs and have it turn on. I would have to find this fidget and pull it out, and I just didn't really like that. I didn't really like that design as much. So the controls on this made it pretty frustrating to use, unfortunately. The other thing on the audio on these was, to me, a slight notch down from either of the Logitechs. They sounded good, music was good, games sounded good. This does surround sound as well, 7.1. The sound was adequate. I wouldn't have any complaints if it wasn't for the control situation. But just, they were definitely not as good sounding as the Logitechs, in my opinion. The other thing is the USB connection. The receiver on these is a wire. It's not just, it's like a dongle. It's not just a USB kind of thumb drive. And to me, you can see here, it just adds like an extra wire to your system, and just not as elegant of a solution, in my opinion. So it was really unfortunate because, like I said, these are the most comfortable headphones I've ever used. But just the integration with the system and some of the, like the USB connection and the microphone, I don't know, just too many drawbacks on that for me to really recommend them. But they are a nicely well-built set of headphones for sure. And one other thing I want to comment on is these headphones, the swivel ear cups on them they swiveled way too much. So in other words, if you have these ever set on your desk, every time you pick them up, you can see how much they swivel, and it just makes it so awkward to pick up and hold. They should really only swivel a few degrees each way, and to lock them into place so you can hold them without it like dropping down. It just makes it tough to grab. Look how much that one rotates. Anyways, it's a gripe that I found to be just really frustrating. So then where does that leave us in the market for wireless PC gaming headphones? To me, not in a really good position. All of these had major drawbacks, whether it was comfort, whether it was the controls, or, well, sound quality were all pretty good on them, but some, obviously the Logitechs I said sounded a little bit better, but they all had deal breakers on them, so I wouldn't personally really recommend any of them. What I am going to do though is I'm going to keep the G533s here. I think they were the best overall. I mean, they were only 80 bucks. They're pretty good. They're not extremely uncomfortable. They're not particularly comfortable, but you know, using the other replacement ear pads, they are tolerable. And I just found that having the wireless capability with my computer headphones is just a huge advantage. I can't really go back to wired now because it's just nice to be able to be sitting at your desk with these on. I can walk up and get, you know, I don't have to take them off to get up and go to the kitchen or wherever, just walk away from your desk. The wireless convenience just adds so much, it's worth kind of a little bit of a trade-off with the comfort factors. As I mentioned earlier, I did try the Corsair Void wireless. Those are pretty good too, but they're a little bit weirdly shaped, and the clamping force on them was so weak that they just felt really loose on my head. They do have good software though. It's a really nice equalizer on there through their Corsair software, but I already use a Logitech mouse, so you know, to have the headphones in the same piece of software to be able to control all the buttons and assign button functions and things like that, I just think it's better than having, I just prefer overrunning another piece of software in my system tray like the Corsair software. But the Corsairs are a decent option as well. They sound really good. They do surround sound too, and you know, they're pretty good price points. So, but to me, I'm gonna stick with the 533s until I find something better personally. And you know, I think I wouldn't recommend really any of the ones I tried. But if you want to try a wireless option over your wired headset, I'd say these are probably the best of the bunch right now, at least in my opinion. But anyways, that's it. If you guys have any questions, leave me down below. I definitely answer them. Thanks a lot for watching. You guys take care.